Hello and welcome to Cage Fighting. It's your main man Andy Gillard here. Hope everyone's good out there.
Buonasera everybody, Matt Guy here. Hope you're doing well.
Mash. Stu here, hello.
What an international flavour that was. So I enjoyed that.
I was going to go for Willkommen again, but then I just thought no, because I'm bound to fuck it up for the second time in a row.
And just throw me under the bus and leave my part in, like last week.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. So, how many times have you watched Mom and Dad since last episode? I've watched it twice since we last recorded.
I watched it yesterday. Just because, well, we're going to come to what we've watched later on. But yeah, I watched it last night before I went to bed, just because I needed something to cheer me up.
I haven't watched it again, but I've been recommending it to anybody that will listen, and pretty much everybody that won't, to be fair. Just because I think it's something that people should see and something that won't have come on their radar, but needs to be.
Yeah, you do get this funny look from folks when you sort of describe it a little bit, but it's just like we said last week, though, it's just a great film.
Yeah, as soon as you said, oh yeah, the parents turn and kill the kids, and they look at you like you've gone mental.
Yeah, especially when you say, no, it's a comedy of sorts.
Yeah, exactly.
So last time out on the QuestionCast, we did our top 5 Will Ferrell films. And we have had somebody send in a clip of them giving us their top 5.
Well, hello there. It's David back again from a Daft Question podcast. And I'm here to give you my top 5 Will Ferrell films. Now, I'm a big fan of Will Ferrell, so it was just quite interesting to try and get this down to a top 5, but I think I've been able to manage it, so here we go. Number 5, perhaps one of his less comedic roles, but no less, it's such a great film and a great performance from Will Ferrell in Stranger Than Fiction. So this is a film about Will Ferrell, who's like an IRS insurance man who finds one day that his life is being narrated by Emma Thompson. He can start hearing this voice narrating what he's doing, and he's going to try and find out why Emma Thompson's voice is narrating everything he's doing. It's interesting because once Will Ferrell stops doing any kind of slapstick role, you actually find that in certain situations, in certain serious roles or kind of normal roles, Will Ferrell does actually do quite well. It's still got obviously a hint of comedy to it. It's probably not as serious as a film he did, I think, called Everything Must Go, which was a bit more of a serious film from Will Ferrell. But yeah, number 5, Stranger Than Fiction. Number 4, I'm going to go with Elf. It's such a great Christmas film. I love how Will Ferrell plays this kind of childish adult who has had no world of the real world, as it were, and he comes to New York to find his dad, and everything he sees is absolutely fantastic. It's still the bit when he goes past that coffee shop that has the sign that says world's best coffee, and he goes in and says congratulations to everybody for apparently having the world's best coffee. It's got so many great Christmas tropes in it. It's one of those films that it's fine to put on and again, even not at Christmas. I'm not really a fan of watching Christmas films not at Christmas, but I think it was really the early days of showing how Will Ferrell was going to become a big star, and it's a great film. Number 3 is The Other Guys. This is the cop film he did with Mark Wahlberg. When I first saw this at the cinema, I was a bit indifferent about it, but I found that once you watch it a couple of times more afterwards, like a lot of Will Ferrell films, you get a lot of the comedy, you spot things you perhaps missed before, and I think his calm demeanour, but when he comes out quite angrily against Mark Wahlberg's character, who's always kind of brash all the time, works really well. I think there's a lot of great character traits about Will Ferrell in that film as well, especially when you find out that he used to be a pimp halfway through, and some of that character comes out of him as the film goes on. But yeah, Other Guys, it's a great performance for Will Ferrell, and it's one of those films, as I say, that it's one of those films where you watch it 2 or 3 times and you learn to appreciate the film more and more. Number 2 is Zoolander. Now, this is, again, one of my favourite films. I know it's not Will Ferrell starring in it, but he's one of the sub-characters in it. But I love how he seems to play this kind of demented fashion designer who, when you compare him to Zoolander in scenes, he looks quite sane. But I think, again, it's a great performance from Will Ferrell, who is kind of trying to expose some of the flaws that are in the fashion industry, and it's got some great lines in it that I'll never forget. It's that relationship he has with his, almost like his PA assistant as well at times, which is really funny, especially the one about coffee, when he throws the coffee over his PA assistant, and the grunts and the facial expressions they give in this particular like 10-second moment is fantastic. And number one, it's going to be the only one that can be number one with Will Ferrell, and that's Anchorman. It is probably one of my favourite films of all time, tied there, or just behind Back to the Future and Scott Pilgrim vs. the World. It's just a film that I can quote and quote and quote to death. I could put it on at any time. It's a comfort film, and I could still get a laugh out of it any time I watch it. And it's just a great performance from Will Ferrell, who plays this quite kind of egotistical, boastful character who nothing he can do is wrong. And again, it's just fantastic. And I know now, as years have gone on, perhaps it gets a bit more mixed reactions, or people have had Anchorman shoved down their throat a bit too much. But I love it. I think it's a great Will Ferrell film, and it's a great performance from him as well.
We've also had a tweet in from Tom Kearney. Now, Matt, would you like to tell us what Tom's top 5 was?
Yeah, I mean, no major surprises here. Though there's one in number 5. I don't think we mentioned, or if we did, it was only in passing, really. But his top 5 would be Zoolander in number 5, Elf number 4, The Other Guys in number 3, Step Brothers number 2, and then Anchorman number 1. Who was it here that hasn't seen The Other Guys yet? Was it you, Stu?
Yeah, I still ain't seen it now.
Come on.
I've got it ready. It's next to Kingsman in the shame pile.
Oh, in the shame pile. Well, thanks to Tom for sending his list in. Again, apart from Zoolander for me, Elf, I don't think made my list, but I recognise it as pretty much something that everybody, like the majority of people that like Christmas films, love. Any of the other films would have made my list, or in some order, in some capacity. So, yeah, I think what we learned from the Will Ferrell episode is actually he's a bit more Marmite than I probably would have realised at first, like before we asked the questions. That not everybody quite likes him quite as much as I thought I did, and maybe that Jordan did.
Yeah, no, I just automatically presumed that he was one of these people that, oh, it's a Will Ferrell film, let's all go and watch it kind of thing, and very, very wrong.
Yeah, I mean, you always say that I hate fun, and because I don't particularly care for Will Ferrell, I just assumed it was me, but no, you are right. Marmite, I think, is the word for the man. We've also had a couple of questions sent in on the Twitter. Obviously, make sure you give us a follow on @CageFightingPod, or email us on cagefightingpod@gmail.com. Matt, what questions have we had, please?
So, yeah, we've had a couple of questions from our listeners, so thank you very much. The first one from Todd across the shore. What is your favourite, easy for me to say, George Romero film? Andy, go with you.
Oh, George Romero.
Yes.
Such a tough choice, because I do love Dawn of the Dead. I think it's an absolute masterpiece. But at the same time, I think that Night of the Living Dead sort of defined the genre. I think you don't get Dawn of the Dead without Night of the Living Dead first. So it's probably Night, just because of its wider importance, personally.
That's absolutely fair. I think you have to acknowledge what came before it and inspiration, and you don't, what you don't get because of it. I completely appreciate that. Stu, any advance on that?
What's the one that's in the shopping centre?
That's Dawn.
Yeah, that's the one I was, because I always get them completely confused. Yeah, that's always been my favourite. I've watched that probably more times than I've watched any other horror film, really. Strangely enough.
Yeah, it's excellent. I've got to say, I'm a big fan of the remake. I know a lot of people shit on remakes generally, and a lot of people shit on Zack Snyder, but it's an excellent film. It's so good. It's one of the first proper zombie films I remember seeing at the cinema.
Yeah. Definitely. What's the name? It's proper jumped out of my head. The game that came out, the zombie game set in the shopping centre. They've made a few remakes of it since.
Left 4 Dead?
No, not Left 4 Dead. Christ, it's going to really annoy me now, this is. Let me come back to it. Anyway, it's heavily influenced so many like zombie computer games on the back of it. It's set in a shopping centre. There's loads of different endings that you can do.
I can picture it. I was just trying to think.
Dead Rising?
Dead
No.
Rising, that's
Is
it.
it?
Dead Rising. So the
Yeah,
first
it's
Dead
Xbox.
Rising, was set in a shopping centre. It was so heavily influenced, and there's loads of like freaks of different bosses that you fight and everything, and it was amazing. And that was one of the things that brought me back to it in the first place. Dawn of the Dead, that is. Because of the theme, we're just going to jump to one that we had on WhatsApp before we hit back to our other questions on Twitter. Goldie sent us a question. Do you have any movies / TV specials that you watch every Halloween? We all have Christmas ones, but do you have them for any other seasons? Stu, you obviously love a Christmas film. That's undebatable. But do you have any other any TV specials or movie specials that you watch at a particular time of year?
Not really. I know Goldie's proper into Halloween and he decorates his house and everything like we were talking about earlier on before we started recording. And he no other festival or period of time really gets that with me. I mean, you could probably say Thanksgiving for planes, trains, and automobiles because that's just brilliant anyway. But apart from that, you don't
watch The Passion of the Christ at Easter?
I only watched that once, and that was a mistake. That was I used that as a date film.
Oh my god!
Thinking that it was going to be one of them that you don't have to concentrate on very much. Yeah, that was an error. No, I mean, I'd normally what I have done though, I've played spooky games the last few years. And actually, there's one that is out on, by the time you're hearing this, last Friday, Little Hope in the Dark Pictures anthology, which is ordered and ready for delivery. So I'll be playing that over the weekend. But yeah, apart from that, films and TV shows, not really. It's more games because it's scarier.
Mm-hmm. What about you, Andy?
Not really. I watch horror films all year round, so I wouldn't make a concerted effort in October just because it's Halloween. It's something that it's one of my favourite genres, so I tend to just dive in as and when. The last few years, what I have watched, BBC TV did a mockumentary, and the name escapes me at the minute, Ghostwatch. And it's from the early 90s. It's got Parkinson in and Craig Charles. And it's set in a studio, and they've got Craig Charles is out and about. He's at someone's house who claims to have ghosts there. And it's set like it's a normal TV show where they're investigating the paranormal. And then shit actually starts to go south. And at the time, nobody knew that it was a mockumentary, that it was not supposed to be real. And the last couple of years, I have watched it, and I've got to admit, it is quite nerve-jangling at times, especially because it's people you don't associate with that. So you wouldn't associate Michael Parkinson with acting at all, let alone acting in a horror setting. It's a fantastic watch. I'd thoroughly recommend that.
Yeah, that sounds pretty good, to be fair. It reminds me, obviously, because this is a mockumentary, so it's not at all. But did you ever watch Grave Encounters, the Canadian found footage film?
No, I've not seen that.
It's basically following a Derek Acora type show that knows it's fake as they go and set up camp in I think it's an abandoned psychiatric hospital, and then shit goes south. But it's funny because you're following a film crew that are filming a fake show that they know is fake with a hokey presenter, and then shit actually goes south, and it's really entertaining, and it shit me right up.
Okay.
And in answer to Goldie's question, whenever we'd had Halloween parties, we'd always put on either Insidious or The Shining. So we had one. We'd either put one of those two films on as kind of a yearly ritual that we enjoyed. But apart from that, no, I don't think there's any other seasons that really. I suppose, is there any kind of summer films that you'd put on that encapsulates summer? I guess like a road trip kind of film or something like that, maybe.
Obviously, May the 4th, I will watch at least 2 or 3 Star Wars films for obvious reasons. And generally on my birthday, I like to watch Home Alone 2, even though it's like May 20th, so it's the middle of the year.
Fair enough. And we've got one final question from Big Tits Tight Snatch. Fantastic name. Let me grab that for you now. So, Stu, you've almost kind of answered this one. So, inspired by Will Ferrell, before Netflix existed, Anchorman was the film the Big Tits would put on in the background when entertaining, I say in closed captions. What was your go-to backing film for trying to get that sweet, sweet undershirt over bra action?
See, now I don't even know what that. Why is it over bra? What's it?
I didn't want to ask, and I'm glad that you have. So,
Because obviously, well, hopefully you'd be under both in that kind of situation. I've said this before. The closest I've ever got to this is watching, Soccer Special on in the background.
Oh my lord!
And but Soccer Special not Soccer Saturday, so it was Jules and not
okay.
Jeff Stelling. So you don't have Charlie Nicholas and all them lot of lunatics in the background. So, but hearing there's a goal at Swindon, and then it kind of ruins the moment. So you just turn around and mute it. But no, it's all about the passion for me. So it's a nil and void for this question.
Oh my god! I can't wait to cut that clip out. It's all about the passion. Andy, do you have any go-tos at all for entertaining?
Not particularly. I think you'd need something that you've seen several times before. The last time I remember having a film on in the background, it was the second Planet of the Apes, the Andy Serkis ones, which I can't even remember which one.
Rise of the Planet of the Apes. That one would have been
Rise, okay.
War. So there's Rise, War, and there was another one. Anyway.
But it was the second one of the latest trilogy, and I hadn't seen it before, which was a mistake because it's a really good film.
So get your hands off me, Devil Woman. I'm trying to watch.
Yeah, it wasn't the best of choices.
Was the woman in question particularly hairy at the time, or were you getting confused?
No, not at all.
So back in my stud days, when at university and before, I used to have one film in particular that was my go-to, and that was The Descent, the horror film.
Oh, brilliant!
And not for like the pun-related reasons either. It was more to do with it was terrifying, the film in general, and it was trying to go for the old adage of put a scary film on, let's cuddle up with a scary film. I'll keep you safe. I'll keep you, and that was my go-to. I'm not ashamed to say it.
And you were more scared at the end.
And I was more scared at the end, and I was like, let's please keep the lights on.
I don't want to get down in your cave now.
Yes, exactly. There'll be no potholing this evening. Well, no, thank you for the questions, everybody. Keep them coming in, and we like to have these off-the-wall ones that we can have unprepared, unadulterated, and X-rated.
Did you see the addendum to Big Tits' question?
I did. I think it was more a side note. This is more for Matt and Stu, because I get the feeling Andy would be furious at someone interrupting a film with their tits.
I've got the one thing which is okay to interrupt a film with is boobs. I'm quite happy with boobs over a film, just for the record.
Oh, okay, fair play.
Just for the record, yeah. So I think we'll move on from the questions and we'll talk about this week's news. Tom Hanks' latest trailer has dropped. It's called News of the World. He's reuniting with director Paul Greengrass. I've got to say, as someone who isn't a massive fan of Tom Hanks, Captain Phillips is one of the best performances I've seen of him in the last decade or so. Mm-hmm. And obviously that was with Paul Greengrass. So I'm actually quite looking forward to this one for a change for a Tom Hanks film. Do you both like Paul Greengrass? Obviously he did the best Bourne films as well, didn't he?
I love the Bourne films, obviously. But yeah, it's a strange kind of change of pace for him with this one, by the looks of things. So I'm
massively different.
Very intrigued by it.
Yeah, it's a Western setting, which obviously we haven't really seen from Paul Greengrass, who's more of a a fast-cutting director who likes to build up the tension. So I'm intrigued how this one's going to play out. I really am.
Be interesting to see if he goes the other way with it, as to trying to get away from the tropes that you'd mentioned. Actually, does it become a bit of a plodding trek across the wilderness, as the plot of the film seems to be? But we'll give it the time of day, I'm sure, and I'm sure, I'm quite a big fan of Hanks, so I think he'll put in a good performance. But we'll see. It's an interesting one. The last Western film that really gripped me was True Grit. I don't know if you'd watched that. It was a while ago now.
The remake.
Yeah, the remake. Yeah, really loved it. I mean, I was never really into westerns in the first place, and when I studied at university, we were studying spaghetti westerns. It was like, get me to French film as soon as possible, and that never happens. So it was like, so I'm not sure. Well, the jury's out on it.
Yeah, the other bit of news that I saw this week I was quite interested in. The Meg is getting a sequel. Ben Wheatley confirmed as director. Ben Wheatley, who is associated with TV work and fairly low-budget films, getting a crack at the big time. Obviously, he's the director who did Ideal with Johnny Vegas. I don't know if you ever saw that.
Oh, what a series that is!
Brilliant.
I'll be amazed if that's on BBC America, or if it is, if anyone overseas gets it at all.
Yeah. I think it's a very British sensibility, but it's such a good series. So I'm really excited to see what Ben Wheatley's going to do when he's given a big budget. And apparently he's also listed for the next Tomb Raider film, the Tomb Raider sequel.
Interesting.
I presume she's back as well. Have you seen it now?
Yeah. No, still haven't seen it. I know it's on the list, and other things keep jumping ahead of it, unfortunately. I will try and get it done because I am at the moment trying to complete Tomb Raider the game. So I was thinking once I've done that, I was going to watch the film.
Is that the rebooted ones, where they had Rise of the Tomb Raider and those ones?
Yeah.
Bloody excellent. They are really good.
I'm on Rise of the Tomb Raider. I'm right at the end, and then I've decided to go back to the start and try and 100% it before completing it.
Oh, nice. Yeah,
which was probably a mistake.
You can do it afterwards. Just complete it and then you go back. Like in the first one.
There's no word on whether or not the Stath is returning for the Meg sequel. I really hope he is, because he wouldn't be the same without Jason Statham, to be honest.
He should really be in every film every week, really.
Yeah, I wouldn't be too disappointed if he just had a cameo in everything. It'd be great.
He could just do it on the green screen from home, and it'd be the same performance. So,
yeah. Absolutely, because let's be honest, even when he's trying to put on an American accent, it's still basically a Cockney accent.
I'd say Transporter 2 is slightly better than usual.
I can't remember if I've seen the sequel. Have there been 3?
Yeah.
Don't know if I've seen the sequels in that one. I do love a bit of Statham, though. He's just one of those actors that is genuinely good fun. Again, he's a bit like Nick Cage, I suppose, in those terms. The film might not always be the best, but he always puts in a watchable performance.
He's like a British.
Sorry, Shay, go on.
He's like a British Steven Seagal in a way.
I'm thinking once we're done with cage fighting, do we put in a transfer request and we call the pod Chase and Statham? Go from there.
I like it. Yeah, I'll make a note of that one for a year and a half time.
Bloody hell. Stick with us, guys. Like and subscribe.
Share.
So we'll move on to the questions for the week. And what have you been watching lately? Stu, trying to start us off?
Do we all just want to talk about what we've all collectively watched together first?
Well, I thought we'd do that at the end. So we'll talk about the other stuff and then we will give our reviews on the big release of the week.
Okay, so I watched a couple of things. One that amazingly I'd never seen before, which was Rampage.
Great.
Did you play Rampage back in the day?
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
I played it on the Atari. I played it on the PS1. Played it on PS2. It's one of them. It's a stupid game. It always has been. And for whatever reason, this film was just missed completely. So it was. We was just scrolling through because of the TV issues, so I was relegated to my gaming room for the week. And we were just looking at something to watch, and it wasn't me who suggested it either. And because you just saw The Rock's face, and should we watch that one? Yeah, okay. So put it on, and it's glorious, absolutely glorious. It knows exactly. Yeah. He knows what it is. It's stupid. CG is a bit shit, and it's one of them very rare things where it's based on a game, obviously. I don't know if it's obviously for people younger than 20, mid-20s. Will they even know what Rampage is?
Probably not. I mean, it was an arcade game way back, wasn't it? That's its genesis.
Yeah, so it's just really good fun. Really stupid 2 hours. So I'd recommend that to anyone. And the other one was the complete opposite end of the spectrum, called. It was a little documentary that's based on the coronavirus, which is all nice and fun for everyone. Called Totally Under Control, and it's not like a propaganda film. It's just facts about how the US have handled things and how things could have been very different. And it's compared to Korea, and they've got people with the CDC and people who've worked on the projects and some of the mistakes that have happened. It was 2 hours, again, really fascinating stuff. But like I said, it was quite saddening because you look at how shit we've done it over here as well. And I need someone happy to watch now, so that's why I watched Mum and Dad again afterwards. Yeah, so that was my observations for the week.
Matt, how about yourself?
So I'd watched Beyond the Mat, as it's come on Netflix now, UK Netflix, which is 1999 documentary on professional wrestlers kind of outside the ring in their lives, and it definitely looks at the darker side of professional wrestling and kind of steroid abuse, drug abuse in general, the kind of families and how they are put to one side really for the common goal of being a wrestler. And it's quite harrowing in it, but what is entertaining about it is actually you see these wrestlers that now are huge mega movie stars like The Rock. You see them pre-Hollywood and some old favourites, and the kind of story now, sorry to everybody here that doesn't like wrestling, and there'll be plenty of you, I've no doubt, but it follows Jake the Snake Roberts around for quite a while, and who during the filming of the show is on crack, and how bad he is at that stage of his life. There's another documentary, I'm not sure if it's still on Netflix now, called The Resurrection of Jake the Snake Roberts, which is really excellent as well, and it shows him with DDP and trying to get sober again, and now he's a part of AEW, and it seems like he's got a real hold of his demons, and it's a really kind of good real life tale to actually see, something that I really hope he maintains, because he's a legendary figure in wrestling, and something completely non-wrestling and heartwarming, though funny. I've been watching a lot of Uncle Roger videos. I don't know if you've heard of Uncle Roger. Okay,
no.
So this is a Does It Fry all over again. This is Uncle Roger's basically this Malaysian comedian who I've only seen him. It's like the Gogglebox craze that I'm really into. He watches other people's videos and comments on them, but he watches people like cook egg fried rice and then critiques them as he's going along. But he's really funny. His editing's really funny. And he does one with Gordon Ramsay, watches Gordon Ramsay do egg fried rice, and he's probably the only one so far where he actually respects what he does. So he's called him Uncle Ramsay. And it's just the way you need to watch them. It's quite funny the way he edits it and the way he talks about it. And it's one of those silly 5-minute things when you've got 5 minutes to spare. I'll just stick on one of those videos and have a laugh with it.
How old is that?
Not well. I think it's come into popularity like now. Really, it might be older than that, but I've only known about it in the last kind of couple of weeks. It is good fun. It's good fun though, because Gordon Ramsay's doing it himself now. He's watching a lot of people's videos. They'll send him in them cooking for Gordon Ramsay to rate, and he'll just slag them off, and it's hilarious. But Uncle Roger does it to Gordon Ramsay, and that's quite funny as well.
In looking for that Jake the Snake thing on Netflix, announcement, Andy, Netflix Christmas films are starting already.
Already? I know there's some out like in the next couple of weeks, but I don't know there's some out now.
Holiday with Emma Roberts.
Oh, I love Emma Roberts.
Exactly. This is a our little thing from last year where we discovered that we both love shitty Netflix Christmas films. And
Yeah, the ones with Liv from iZombie.
yeah,
I love that one. That was just the shittest thing ever. And
the Christmas Prince trilogy.
the Christmas Prince trilogy, and there's the other one with Vanessa Hudgens where she also has a doppelganger. They're just so bad, but enjoyable pap, really. I think is the best way to put them. So for myself, this last week, I watched The Social Dilemma, which I can't remember, but I think one of you two gents recommended. Very good. I mean, I'm not on Facebook anyway, but I can see why so many people deleted their apps after watching that film.
Really?
Excellent. Really, really well made. And apart from the message as well, it's actually a fantastically well made documentary, mixing acting with the documentary story part of it. Really well done. Very impressed. And the other film that I watched was a film called The Trial of the Chicago 7, which I thought was absolutely incredible. So it's about 7 people who are on trial in Chicago, as the name tells you. Basically, they go to the Democratic Party conference back in I think it was the 70s, because it was during the Vietnam War. They are at the scene of a crime, basically, when a riot breaks out amongst their peace-loving friends. They're the ones who get held up, and they're the ones who get put on trial for conspiring to start a riot. And it's got obviously a very strong political message about stuff back then, but it probably rings true now. Sacha Baron Cohen's in it, and as I said to you two gents in our group chat, I would not be surprised if he gets an Oscar nomination for Best Supporting Actor. It was absolutely incredible. I think it was just under 2 hours.
Yeah, just
knock yourself out. It's brilliant.
1968. Joseph Gordon-Levitt as well.
Yeah, and
Eddie Redmayne.
Eddie Redmayne, yeah. It's got a really good cast.
That's on the list.
Frank Langella is the judge in it. And you genuinely hate his guts. He's horrible. So well acted. It's incredible. Yeah, I think I'd recommend it to anybody because it's just a good courtroom drama with a political bent to it. It's fantastic. So the other film that we've all watched also stars Sacha Baron Cohen and was released last Friday in our terms, but obviously it was 2 Fridays ago when this drops, and that would be the Borat sequel. Matt, what did you think of the film first before we get into the minutiae? Did you enjoy it? Was it good, bad?
It was good for all the wrong reasons, or I should say the reasons that I didn't expect it to be good. And those reasons being actually its story and its themes were a lot better than what I expected from it, which would be shock factor and kind of laugh out loud moments, which I think were in kind of shorter supply than I expected. But actually, its story arc carried it really, really well. I was invested so much more than I thought I was going to be in actually the story that they were going with, not the shocking antics of the film itself.
Yeah, absolutely. Stu, what were your initial thoughts?
Almost word for word that again. It was because of how brilliant the first one was, and I did think, is this taking an old joke and running with it, and being so long between films, and would it stand up now? Because I mean, for context, I think more than likely it was me and Goldie went to watch the original one, and we've been drinking wine in the Pheasant of all places beforehand, and it was absolutely steaming before we went in there. So it was obviously 10 times funnier than it was anyway in that circumstances. And when I've only seen it a couple of more times because I love that experience so much, I didn't want to kind of down it a little bit. I think just leave it as it is. But when this came up, and I thought, it's out Friday, and then it was on Prime as well, and we'd have to go through nefarious means to get hold of it. It was on as soon as the kids were in bed. It was one of them things, and the acting from, I'm going to get a name wrong anyways, but the daughter was absolutely superb. It was brilliant. It was just It was just really well made. I mean, it kind of, in a way, it was ruined because the thing about the hillbilly song, the hillbilly festival, I'd seen that and I shared it at the time when it was on Twitter. What he was the song they sing, like the Saudis do, etc. And the Trump thing, but apart from the stunts, it didn't really matter because the story was great, and the things like the Jew cake there were tears running down my face. I was laughing that much, just the complete absurdity of it, and the fact that she just let it happen and just went along with it. And you think, yeah, this is obviously these kind of films are made to make people look stupid, but then you look at the babysitter and how well she came across, and you think, yeah, okay, this film's excellent.
Yeah, I'd said to friend of the podcast, Ash Dolan, the babysitter and the elderly Jewish lady might be the best two people in the whole of America. They were incredible. Like, they were such lovely human beings that with all the other dicks that were in the movie, it sort of restored your faith a little bit, and it definitely needed that, I felt. The big scenes, so the dance, obviously I won't go into too many details for spoiler purposes. The dance scene I found hilarious. I did genuinely laugh out loud at that. But I didn't laugh out loud at a lot of other things in it. It wasn't quite as riotous as the first film.
No, it wasn't.
So in the first film where he fights with his producer and he gets his balls in his face, and that was probably one of the funniest things I've ever seen in a cinema. I thought it was absolutely hilarious. And this film doesn't have quite that same impact. I felt for a film that was just over 90 minutes, it did feel like there's quite a lot of padding. There's quite a lot of just travelling from one set piece to the next. I felt that flow didn't quite work for me at times. Mm-hmm. It was by no means a bad film, but it's a solid 6. It's just on the right side of good for me, I think. Maria Bakalova, fucking incredible. She was definitely the star of that film for me.
And
she was excellent.
You have got to give him credit for filming this in a pandemic as well, and the absolute madness of just going around making a film with obviously the mask situation, whatever, and putting his health at risk, if anything else, is more than usual with these kind of things. You think, fair play to you.
I mean, yeah, going and staying with those rednecks for 5 days, staying in character the whole time. That's commitment to the cause.
But I would have liked to seen them more because however ridiculous they were, they didn't seem like bad people.
No.
They just seemed like, well, this is
misguided.
Yeah, this is what they know, so of course they're going to think like this. But they didn't seem like they were nasty or anything. They just, I would have liked to have seen that if that scene, because it was between 2 and 5 minutes when he was with them in the house, and it kind of cut between days, and you think, well, I would have liked to have seen that more, but that's just being picky. I mean, obviously, if he was in character for 5 days and there was nothing that special happened, then even better. That they are just normal people, if a bit misguided.
Yeah, to quote the great Mark Corrigan, "You're not a bad person, you're just a moron." So I think that's kind of how it was, really. No, I know what you mean, and like it didn't quite have the same amount of like laugh out loud moments, but the story was enough to carry it for me. And it was more just a pleasant surprise than anything, because I really thought it was going to be absolute trash.
Yeah, definitely. But I think the fact that for me, it was more about Tutar, I think her name. I can't remember if that's how it's pronounced. It was very much about her story. That's where the heart was. All of the stuff with Borat was sort of just by the wayside slightly. And that might be because the character of Borat is so well known. Mm-hmm. And obviously they make a joke of that in the film. He can't be Borat.
Yeah.
Almost everybody knows who he is, so it doesn't work. So I think shifting focus onto her made so much more sense.
And it's also potential spoiler alert. Now I know the way I can get a fleshlight into my house without arousing suspicion.
I did chuckle at that. I thought that was very, very funny. And Sacha Baron Cohen shared on Twitter in the last couple of days a clip of when he was at the rally, and they chase him off stage into the back of his production van, and they just have to haul ass out of there. Yeah, got quite dicey. But I mean, I definitely recommend people to give it a viewing. It's interesting. If I'm honest, I'm not quite sure who it's made for, because obviously the political message is very much geared towards these right-wing rednecks are idiots, don't vote for them. However, I don't think this film is going to change anybody's minds on that. I think people who are going to vote for Biden are already going to vote for Biden, and those who are going to vote for Trump, they're not even going to watch the film, are they? Let's be honest.
Just answer the damn questions.
So we'll move on to the normal questions of the week. Matt, you're going to kick us off this week, please.
I certainly am. So, Christopher Lloyd, for me, underrated as an actor, doesn't get talked about, potentially because he doesn't necessarily fall into one particular kind of genre, but I think he's a little underrated. So I want to know from you guys, Stu, I'll go with you first, your favourite Christopher Lloyd performance, please.
It's not going to be Back to the Future because that's too obvious. But there's a couple. There's Who Framed Roger Rabbit, obviously, because that's a childhood thing. But actually, one that when you mentioned this, and I thought, other than them two, there's got to be another one. And I was looking down the list, and it came to me, and I completely forgot about it. The Adventures of Buckaroo Banzai across the eighth dimension. And you're looking completely gobsmacked.
No idea.
What?
I've never heard of it.
I've never heard of it, Stu.
No way.
Apologies.
It's, 1984. You've never seen Buckaroo Banzai?
I was still a twinkle in my dad's eye then.
Yeah, without looking and cheating, the synopsis: adventurer, brain surgeon, rock musician, Buckaroo Banzai, and his crime-fighting team, the Hong Kong Cavaliers, must stop evil alien invaders from the 8th dimension who are planning to conquer Earth. In this film, there's John Lithgow, Ellen Barkin, Jeff Goldblum, Christopher Lloyd, and Peter Weller.
Oh, okay.
It's absolutely
incredible,
batshit crazy. And he's not the main star as Peter Weller is, but he's brilliant in this film. In both, without ruining it, saying both guys, but there's makeup involved,
okay,
and it's excellent. It's just excellent. Just as a cult weird film from the 80s, and I'm generally lost for words. Andy doesn't know what this film is.
No, I've never even heard of it. I'm adding it to the list as we speak.
I mean, probably just watch the trailer. I mean, put the trailer in there now. It's just weird. But it's strangely 80s, but it could have been made in like 1971 at the same time.
Was that a budget? Is that a budget thing, or is that?
It doesn't look great, but then you know how Clash of the Titans and stuff looks really shit, and you think it was made like in the 30s.
Yeah,
it's like that in places, but it's obviously not going to age well for the time it was made. But yeah, it's definitely worth a watch, just for weirdness factor.
What about you, Andy? What's your favourite performance?
Well, I've just had a look at the cast on that. It looks incredible. Yeah, as Stu said, it's not going to be Back to the Future because that's the obvious choice. The first film that sprang to my mind was Who Framed Roger Rabbit, because I think his villain still haunts my nightmares. The sound when he puts the animated shoe into the dip.
The squeal.
The squeal is just horrendous, but he's such an imposing character that it's great. But for me, it's probably when he played Uncle Fester in the Addams Family films.
Yep. Oh, yeah.
I think at Values is such a good movie. It's proper underrated. He just doesn't get the recognition that it deserves. But I think he's also excellent in the first one when he still doesn't know who he is. And he's this duplicitous character where he's trying to figure out if he's the good guy or if he's the bad guy, and he's siding with Joan Cusack. It's Joan Cusack, isn't it? In both films, I think he's the standout actor, and they've got some good actors in those films as well. But
absolutely,
yeah, big fan of the Addams Family. I haven't watched the latest animated version, but I can't imagine it would be the same. I'd quite like to see him bring back Christopher Lloyd as Fester, but obviously Raul Julia is no longer with us, is he? So they'd need to recast.
Is that the one
main man
with Christina Ricci?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They essentially basically need to get Kevin Owens and Paige in to play in a grown-up version of Pugsley and Wednesday. To be honest,
Wednesday. Yeah.
Yeah, the chemistry between Gomez, Raul Julia, and Christopher Lloyd is just incredible. I watched them both very, very recently because Sam, my wife's going through a Halloween phase at the minute, but watching kind of kids ones. So watching like the Addams Family and what's the other one? Not Bedazzled. The one that's got
Bejeweled.
Sarah Jessica Parker in it.
Hocus Pocus.
Hocus Pocus, yeah, watch Hocus, and all kind of the kid-friendly ones. I say kid-friendly. The Witches has been on in our house, and that scared the shit out of me when I was little. Speaking of which, I think the Anne Hathaway one's out now, which I'll need to watch. For me, Christopher Lloyd, I mean, not a massive part, but his part in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest was good, and one that I'd never seen, but watched it when Sam was watching it the other day was when his appearance in Dennis the Menace. When he plays, what's the name? I think it's like, it's something like. I was about to say Stabby Pete, and he's definitely not like he's definitely not Stabby Pete. It's something like I can't remember what the name is, like Shawshank Charlie or something like that. but he's a really like fun character to watch get hurt, and that's essentially what you want in a villain in a film like Dennis the Menace, like a kid's film. Like you just enjoy watching the bad person get hurt, which is half the fun of, well, pretty much nearly all the fun of something like Home Alone. You're not watching it for Macaulay Culkin, you're watching it to watch Joe Pesci get the shit kicked out of him. And I think Christopher Lloyd does a really, really good job in that. So that is going to be my performance for this question.
It's amazing when I was looking into his recent films, because he's an actor who almost seems to have vanished from the cinemas, but when you look into the number of films and what have you that he's done, like, he hasn't stopped working. It's mostly been onto TV work and voice acting, but he's got like 200 odd credits on IMDb. Like, he's a very busy man still, and he's no spring chicken.
No, absolutely not. Switchblade Sam was the name of the character, not Hatchet Harry or whatever it was that I said.
He's done a lot of games as well.
Yeah, he has.
Yeah.
Like he fully embraces like exactly what he is, kind of thing, and I'm pretty sure he did the con circuit when that was a thing.
Yeah, I think so. I think he's very much embraced and enjoyed his fame, and fucking good on him. Cannot blame the fella. He was also in the DuckTales movie. He played the assistant in that, and that's one of my favourite animated films. That's one that I still revisit occasionally now. I absolutely love that movie, the Treasure of the Lost Lamp. Absolutely incredible. So the next question, that one would be mine. So you've just mentioned The Witches has been remade, as has The Craft. So I would like to know which 90s property needs a new coat of paint and refreshed for the 2020s. Matt, you can kick us off.
I would really like to see, and I'm not even tying my hands together saying I need a remake. So a sequel would be fine. I would love a remake. Leon the Professional. I fucking love that film. That was so when I was growing up, me and my brother would go stay with my dad, and rightly or wrongly, we'd go to the corner shop at the end of the road. We'd get us a video. We were about 10 years old, and it would always be an 18 because that was just our thing. We just watched we watched Leon the Professional. And I was like, oh my God, this was just insane. It was super violent, gritty, like action-packed. There was this really weird, I was too young to understand chemistry between Natalie Portman. And it was just, I just love to see what they could do with that film now, with the effects that they could do now, and not CGI, because that would be the completely wrong look for the film, but just what they could do with it on a grander scale with a bigger budget. The biggest challenge for me would be, I don't know who you were going to get to replace Gary Oldman in that film, because his performance was just spectacular. And I don't think anybody could be a good villain in that role as he was in Leon. I just think it was so cool compared to then films that were out like GoldenEye and things like that were so hokey and camp. But then you had Leon that like had almost like the same kind of Tubular Bells music in it, but it was about this like hitman who didn't give a shit but was so broody. And I just think they could do a really good job with it now. Whoever it, would pick that up, and I'd love to see it. And that'd be a day one releaser for me, 100%.
I've never heard it being called that before. I just knew it was Leon.
I think it's like either known as Leon or The Professional, and I'm just that kind of guy that calls it Leon The Professional.
And when I typed it into IMDb, because I was really confused, it did come up as Leon The Professional, and then you click on it and it just says Leon. So it's like an Avengers Assemble situation again.
Potentially.
Yeah, I think that's what it is. And this also explains your massive hard-on for Natalie Portman as well, then, doesn't it, Matt?
It's like
He liked her as a child.
He was a child as well, so
I'm going to point that out at this point. Me and Natalie have travelled together through puberty and through my adolescence. Natalie's been by my side the whole time.
I was more impressed with Jean Reno. To refer. Did you ever see him in Onimusha 3? When he was a guest star in the Onimusha 3 game, which is obviously a game about feudal Japan.
I've seen the scene in question, but I haven't seen it, and it's quite mad.
Yeah, he was quite fat at the time as well, so they've obviously slimmed him down a bit in the game, but it was very, very weird. I like Onimusha back in the day, but every time I think of Leon, it always reminds me of that game, just because he was completely out of place, because he went to modern day, and it was Jean Reno.
It is a weird one. So which film or films would you like to see given a reboot in the modern day?
There was one that came to mind straight away that had loads of promise, and with mad a bit CG and stuff, but CG and practical effects kind of worked together in the first place with this, but it was just never done properly, and that's Waterworld.
Okay, yeah.
Which, the idea, superb, but it's so camp and shit that it's just not very good, is it? It's one of them things where the idea is better than the actual finished product, and I think especially with the kind of end of the world, I'm going to say situation now, let alone people being like The Last of Us and The Road and things like that and the Horizon Zero Dawn, PS4, PS5, things like that being in vogue, then something after what we have now would be pretty cool to do with modern day stuff and a proper budget, but it was the most expensive film for years, wasn't it, after it was made?
Yeah, it was.
And it was just a massive... I mean, I remember really looking forward to it, and then we went to see it, and it was just a massive disappointment.
Mm.
But maybe I'm just clinging to that fact that I wanted to see it done properly. But the idea is pretty cool.
I think that's a good shout, because you are right. There is a seed of a good idea in there, and it just wasn't delivered. So for myself, the genesis of this actually came from Stu, when you mentioned the other week about Enemy of the State. It got me thinking that actually Enemy of the State would be the perfect film that you could update to now, and rather it being about government spying on its people, you could actually do it with Facebook and social media companies tracking people, and it could be a critique of the social media age. And I'd probably go with someone like John Boyega or Naomi Thompson in the lead role. I think that would be great. But that isn't my answer. My answer is a film that is kind of great and kind of terrible at the same time. And it's Showgirls. This was the reason I spent last night watching Showgirls, to remind myself.
That's why you're all red.
Yeah. So the trailer for the new Saved by the Bell series drops yesterday. And like when I grew up, I was obsessed with Jessie Spano. I loved her. I thought she was incredible. And Showgirls kind of ruined my childhood because it was not good seeing her like that. But actually, when you see films like A Star Is Born and that, I think you could make Showgirls into a Star Is Born type serious drama about someone who wants to be famous and growing up and struggling with their loss in life. So she moves to Vegas because her life has been pretty shit. She starts out as a stripper who gets a chance to be a dancer. And I think you could tell a really good story there. I mean, you could even go as far as casting someone like Lady Gaga in the main role, or if you wanted to go a bit younger, someone like Sophie Turner.
Mhm.
I think you could make a really good Oscar bait type of film with it, or you could go completely the other way and just dive into the camp aspects of the movie, the real campus tits nonsense, and just go with someone like Amber Heard. Because I remember back in the 90s, you had all of these sexy, erotic drama thrillers. You know, stuff like Crash, the one with James Spader, or Colour of Love, which if you haven't seen Colour of Love, I implore you, you need to watch it. It's bananas. And we don't have those films anymore, and I kind of miss them because they're so schlocky and so shitty. And you could do that with Showgirls quite easily if you were to remake it in the modern day. Chuck Amber Heard in there because she's incredible and she's batshit insane as well. She'd be the perfect modern day Nomi. So yeah, it's Showgirls for me. I think it needs a 2020 refresh.
I haven't seen Showgirls for years.
I've seen it a couple of times because it's had a recent reappraisal over the last sort of 5-10 years. And yeah, I watched it again last night. And I've got to say that in the hands of a better director, Paul Verhoeven was not the right man to make that movie. He's a very good director, but that's not his bread and butter for me.
None of arms being blown off, is there?
Exactly. That's exactly. It needs to be RoboCop and nothing else. So the final question, that's on to yourself, Stuart.
Yeah, and this has been dedicated, I suppose you could say, since regular listener Goldie was mentioned earlier. Him and Danielle had a baby boy who's, as the time this goes out, he's now a week old. So, in honour of Jacob Graham Hall Gold, I was thinking about kids stuff, and the question was, what kids film do you still like from when you was a child? Matthew.
Stuart. My film, love this film, and it really stands the test of time because its gags are timeless. It is George of the Jungle. Watch out for that tree. George of the Jungle, absolutely love this film. When Disney Plus came out, I downloaded the app for my Xbox, set up an account just to watch George of the Jungle because I just love it. I just think it reminds me of just all the best things about like going away, going on holiday, taking a video with you so you can watch when you're in the caravan kind of thing. We'd take George of the Jungle. Whenever I was off school, we'd watch George of the Jungle as like a film. So like you just watch a film when you're young, you just watch it over and over and over again, and it'd always be George of the Jungle. I don't know why. I can't explain it. I just can't explain it. There's no right answer to explain it, but it's just it laughs at itself. It goes beyond the fourth wall at times. It's got comedy singing monkeys. What's that not to like about that? It's slapstick, and it's just I can't explain it. I don't know how to justify it to you.
It's just pure fun.
It's pure fun. It's pure unadulterated Disney fun. And I was never like a Disney guy growing up. Like I hadn't seen like Lion King till I was like well older. Half of the Disney films that people love, I've either not seen or only ever seen once, because George of the Jungle was the one for me. That was what Disney was. And I just love that film now. I'll probably watch it when this is finished because we're talking about it.
And it also came out in 97.
Did it?
Yes.
How old would I have been in 97? I'd have been 8. So yeah, but just about the right kind of time.
Sickening me. Absolutely sickening.
You know, the worrying thing is, like the way you just spoke about George of the Jungle, that's how I feel about Child's Play 2. As a younger guy, like I would have probably been maybe around 10 or 11, I would watch Child's Play consistently. I knew word for word. I even counted how many times they said fuck in that film. I knew it back to front. It's a film I love even to this day, and I will revisit it. I just love it. But I don't think Goldie should be showing Jacob that film anytime soon, if I'm perfectly honest. The film that I still adore to this day, Labyrinth. I just, like you say, it's probably not the best film ever made for kids, but it's one that, as soon as you put it on, you've just got to smile the whole way through. The acting is sublime. It's campus tits, but it's fun. It's inviting. It's heartwarming. It's just everything you want in a film. It's a big, sprawling action adventure. Like, you realise how big the world is out there, and I love it. I've got no rhyme or reason for it other than it's just an incredible movie.
Can I ask a question?
Is it you remind me of the Babe?
No. Was Barry on your radar before you saw Labyrinth?
Probably not.
So would this been your introduction to him then, do you think?
I think so, yeah.
So that's really interesting. So. That is really interesting, because I'd have loved to have known, like, so I hadn't seen Labyrinth till I was quite a bit older. So I wasn't a child when Labyrinth was out. I don't know, when was Labyrinth out? Do you know? Like, was it the
86?
Yes. Yeah, so I wouldn't have been born then. So, to see like David Bowie as that character, as the Goblin King, must have just been, like, depending on how young you were, terrifying, I guess. And it would have been like really, really interesting to see that be your introduction to obviously an icon in music.
I'd have probably been about 7 or 8 when I saw it for the first time.
Yeah.
It was released in 86, and it would have been early 90s when I got round to it. And yeah, that probably would have been the first introduction to Bowie, because I think my only musical knowledge prior to that would have been Michael Jackson and Moonwalker.
Oh, dearie me.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a film in
so yeah,
itself.
Labyrinth, and Labyrinth is one I still return to now. I've got some artwork of the scene where he tells her that he moves the world for no one. I love it. Like I say, no rhyme or reason. It's just a damn good film.
Is it possibly the biggest crotch on screen as well?
Oh yeah, I mean that cod piece is like, he'd be arrested for that now. It's like offensive.
Thank God they didn't have 3D technology the way we know it now.
What about yourself, Stu?
So I had a few minutes. The one that a lot of them I realised that was because I watched it with my granddad. So things like, I've mentioned it before, The Thief of Baghdad, which is a film from the 40s. Very kind of stop motion animation, kind of Jason and the Argonauts kind of thing. And then you got things like Short Circuit, obviously.
Oh, brilliant.
And I was going to say Land Before Time, the first one, not the 7th or 9th or whatever it's on now. But the one that I kept coming back to was Flight of the Navigator.
Great film.
It's just one of them films that just don't get made anymore for whatever reason. And it always seems to be like in E.T.'s shadow kind of thing, and the Witch Mountain films. And I just really remember just really loving that film. And I saw it about 5-6 years ago again, and it's still the same. It's probably, if you put it on for anyone now, it's probably camp and rubbish. But as a kid, watching that about someone, a kid who jumps into a spaceship and goes on an adventure, and then he's been gone for God knows how long. Spoilers. For Flight the Navigator from the 80s. Yeah, it was just something about the fantastical about it, and I remember it being really well done as well at the time. And I had this, like in the summer holidays, we'd have things like his granddad would bring just cardboard boxes home, and I'd cut them up and make a kind of navigation panel in the bedroom window, and sit there and look at the window and pretend I was in the scene. And I don't remember any other film doing that. So it was really, really, when I came to it, I thought, yeah, Flight to the Navigator is the one that I haven't seen it over and over again, but again, like I do with the things I really like, other than Transformers, obviously, there's a mention. I I don't watch them over and over again because I like them too much and I don't want to ruin it. So if for some reason you haven't seen Flight of the Navigator, just go and watch it and pretend you're a child while you do it.
Interesting. No.
Yeah. I've just noticed, looking at my list and the honourable mentions that I had, they've all got sort of like a kind of sci-fi horror bent to them. So like Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, wonderful. I mean, I fucking love Rick Moranis, and Hollywood's the worst place for not having him in it anymore. I find that quite sad that he sort of gave up on it.
And what happened
Fair
to him the
play
other
to
week
him.
as well.
Yes, that was quite distressing, but at least he's doing well, thankfully. Ghostbusters is also on my list. Ghostbusters is great, and I fully expect that as soon as Jacob is old enough, that will be the first film that Goldie will show him. Who Framed Roger Rabbit, and a film called Little Monsters with Fred Savage. Yeah, that's also on my list. The only one that isn't of that sort of genre is The Little Mermaid, which is probably my favourite animated film ever. That's the only one that isn't got kind of like a horror sort of bent to it.
Well, I say Ursula's pretty horrifying when you're a kid.
I mean, oh yeah, good point.
But have you seen the other two? They're not actually that bad.
I've not. I've only ever seen the original and left the others to
They
the
are
dustbin of time.
They're both on Disney Plus remastered, so they are worth checking out. They're on about 70-80 minutes long.
I believe Kristen Bell does the voice in at least one of them. I'll probably give it a chance. Do you like a bit of Kristen Bell, to be honest?
She's one of us.
She's the reason I hate Dak Shepard, because he's married to her, and it's not fair.
I'm going to ask for something unusual now, Andy, if it's okay with you. I want to throw a special bonus question out there.
Go on,
Is
then.
that okay?
Of course.
Unprecedented, this is. Based on some of the things we've already said today. Okay. There's one I might send to our friends at A Daft Question and get them to thrash out as well, because I'd like to be interested to hear their views. How long is it socially acceptable to leave it for somebody before you're allowed to discuss a film or a TV show? Before it becomes spoilers? What's the acceptable time frame?
I'd say...
Do you give people a week?
No, because people...
It depends.
Yeah, people...
What medium it's on, I guess.
If it's a blockbuster film, say like Endgame, or... No, say Infinity War, and you didn't want to spoil what happened at the end of Infinity War. If you haven't watched it in the first 2 or 3 weeks, then you need to have a look at yourself. If you're that bothered about it, then...
Yes.
Yeah.
Then you can't be moaning about it, really, for something like that. But I think just things like... I don't know, just random films that you just watch, and like when I watched, I could have mentioned it earlier, like The Prestige, which ridiculously I'd never seen in my entire life because I don't like magicians, and I hadn't had that spoilt for me at all. Amazingly, in the whole time it was 16 years old. If someone had told me what had happened in that film, then it would be my own fault because it's 16 years old.
Yeah, I get you.
So for me, for new releases, I'd say 3 weeks. If it's something like, if it's a conversation point, but if it's just a random, like, I don't know, like The Colour of Water or something like that, then you got to give it at least 2 years for it to seep onto telly and streaming services. For me, anyway.
Okay, Andy,
I say give it a month. To an extent, I agree. I say give it a month because if it's something that you're that bothered about, you will make the effort to go and see it. So if you don't want Avengers spoiling, you're going to be there within a month because you don't want to risk having it spoiled. Anything after that, I find, is fair game. With TV shows, it does depend on the medium. I think if it's on Netflix, and they dump the whole series in one day, again, I'll say probably a month to get through the whole season. Whereas if it's a weekly show, I think if you've not seen last week's episode, by the time the new one's out, that's fair game.
Yeah, I'd say that's probably fair. I agree with both of you, to be honest. The reason I bring it up is because I'm forever plighted with watching kind of wrestling events that are on at midnight to 4 a.m. and having to avoid social media for days, and I'll get it ruined somehow by foolishly thinking I can, like, not see spoilers. And companies like, AEW are really crap for this, is they their Instagram posts will all minutes after the event's been on will be flooded with like actual spoilers of the events. And I know it's different because it's a sport, quote unquote sport. So it's different, but yeah, I'm just interested to see where you guys were with that.
Yeah, I remember Walking Dead spoiling the death of one of their characters. Literally, they died on screen and then put out a post on Twitter or whatever. And a colleague of mine at the time, she was a big fan, and she knew like within 2 hours of it ending, and we didn't get to see it for another day.
Yeah, that's shit.
So I think that's really shitty when they do that.
Yeah, I was going to say that there is the other situation as well, which is very niche, but like things like E3 and stuff like that, where gaming events where if you don't watch it on Twitch live or on YouTube live or whatever, and you wait for it to be uploaded as the video, and then in the actual video, the thumbnail for the video, they spoil the surprise of the event.
Yeah.
Then what? Why? Just why? Just put like a shock face or something, which a few of them have started doing it this year, especially because it's all been different and it's all been remote anyway. There's been no spoilers in the thumbnail, but things like silly things like that if that's like you just said within hours, then you gotta say no, clearly not. You gotta give that a bit of time.
Especially like when you're talking about stuff that has worldwide appeal. Because not everybody is going to be able to watch something that is on at, I don't know, 8 o'clock UK time. That's going to be midday in America. People will be at work, or it's going to be midnight over in, I don't know, the Middle East. I'm not 100% sure what the time difference is, but you do have to be considerate of that. And the world is getting smaller with these things. It's no longer a case of a film being released any longer in the US and then it's the UK 6 months later. If anything, we might get it before them, or it's a same day release.
Well, it's like The Mandalorian. If we hadn't all nicked it and downloaded it on torrented it would have been completely ruined for us. And that was Disney's fault because they fucked us over.
Yeah.
Well, now we're getting
doing that.
Yeah, we're getting it the same day on first episode has already gone up when you listen to this. So at least it's day and date for everyone, which is fine.
So I think it has to be now. It's the only way forward.
Yeah. No, that's fair. Thank you guys for answering that bonus question. Just something that it's a bit of a moral dilemma for some people. So if you take anything away from this podcast, don't spoil things for other people, you shits.
But I've got to say, sometimes finding out a spoiler for a film makes me go and watch the film.
Really?
I never get that arsey about especially if it's one that's older. So like with Sixth Sense, I don't think I was ever particularly fussed about seeing it. Somebody told me what the spoiler was. I was like, oh, that sounds really good. I'm going to go and watch it now.
Oh, okay.
It actually drove me to watch it.
But on the other way, if I know there's a twist for something, I won't even bother. Because just knowing there's a twist ruins the twist because you know one's coming.
Way through. Yeah.
See, I'm not like that. I'm quite happy to just enjoy the ride and see where it takes us. See how they get there rather than... But yeah, that...
Life is about the journey, not the destination, Andy.
Damn right.
Where's your live, laugh, love decal on the wall?
That's the wall where the camera is, so we can't see.
Yeah, that's it. So that's us done for another week, ladies and gents. If you enjoy what we do, can we please ask that you take a minute and go to wherever you listen and just leave us a review? It helps get our podcast seen by other people. I can't tell you how much this tiny act would actually help us out. It would be fantastic. So up next week, we have got a couple of films. We're going for something, I say sci-fi, because we're going to be looking at Knowing, and we're also going to be looking at Colour Out of Space. And I'm not quite sure that fits in sci-fi, but I'm not sure where it does fit. It is a unique film, shall we say. It's it's a head scratcher. But obviously that's for next week, so give them a watch and then you can listen along with us next week. So for this week, Stu, would you like to say goodbye?
I'll eat a bat with you. Goodbye.
Matt, would you like to say goodbye?
Take it easy, guys. Stay safe.
And it's goodbye from me, and remember, be excellent to each other.
fist me. Now I fist you?
All right, there you
What
go.
do you prefer? You fist me or I fist you?
Same time.
Fist each other.
There you go.